The invitation had come as a surprise. Daniel Mercer didn't own a tuxedo. He owned one suit, navy blue, bought 6 years ago for his wife's funeral, and he pressed it the night before with the kind of careful attention a man gives to things he cannot replace. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? His daughter Lily, 8 years old, and already wiser than most adults he knew, had straightened his tie and told him he looked like a movie star. He had laughed, kissed her forehead, and driven 3 hours to a wedding where he knew almost no one. Almost. He knew Vivian Ashworth, the billionaire, because she had shown up at his garage 14 months ago with a flat tire. No signal on her phone, and the particular frustration of a woman unaccustomed to being helpless. He had fixed the tire, refused her $100 tip, and made her a coffee from his old machine in the back. They had talked for 2 hours. She had come back the following Saturday, and the one after that, until somewhere between oil changes and honest conversation, an unlikely friendship had grown roots. When her younger sister Claire announced her wedding, Vivian had called Daniel and said simply, "I need someone real there. Everyone else will be performing." He had tried to decline. She had not allowed it. So there he sat, 3rd row from the back, in his navy suit, while women in designer gowns floated past and men in Italian shoes glanced at him the way people glance at something that doesn't quite fit the picture. A bridesmaid with sharp eyes and sharper opinions leaned toward her companion near the entrance and said, "Just loud enough. Who invited the mechanic?" Her companion giggled. Daniel heard it, said nothing, and looked down at the printed program in his hands. Vivian's mother had approached him near the champagne table before the ceremony and asked, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, how he knew the family. "I'm a friend of Vivian's," he said. The woman had nodded slowly, the way people nod when they've decided not to believe something, but are too polite to say so. He didn't explain further. He never did. The ceremony was beautiful in the way expensive things often are, flowers everywhere, a string quartet, afternoon light falling through cathedral windows, like something planned by God and billed by a decorator. Claire walked down the aisle and cried the good kind of tears. The guests murmured appreciatively. Daniel watched and thought about his own wedding, small and imperfect and the best day of his life. Then the groom walked to the microphone for his vows. His name was Marcus Webb. He was 34, handsome, the founder of a logistics company that had recently been featured in 3 different business magazines. He was the kind of man rooms paid attention to, and he stood now at the altar, with the easy confidence of someone who had earned his place in every room he'd ever entered. He began his vows. His voice was warm, practiced, full of love for Claire. But then he paused, not the pause of a man collecting emotion, but something different, a stillness that moved through him like a current. His eyes had drifted almost without permission to the 3rd row from the back, to the navy suit, to the quiet man sitting alone with a printed program in his hands. The color left Marcus Webb's face. He stood at the altar of his own wedding and stared, and the silence stretched long enough that Claire touched his arm. He didn't seem to feel it. His mouth opened. The word that came out was not "I do." It was not Claire's name. It was not anything from the vows he had spent 2 weeks writing. It was one word, barely above a whisper, and yet the acoustics of that cathedral carried it to every corner of the room.
"Boss."
The ballroom. It was technically a converted cathedral with a reception hall attached, and the walls had ears, seemed to stop breathing. Heads turned. The string quartet lowered their instruments. Vivian, standing at the front as maid of honor, closed her eyes briefly with the expression of someone who had wondered if this moment might come. Marcus stepped down from the altar. His best man reached for his arm, and he moved past without seeing him. He walked up the aisle, past the front rows of confused family members, past the middle rows of murmuring guests, all the way to the 3rd row from the back, where Daniel Mercer sat with the stillness of a man who had long ago made peace with being overlooked. "It's you," Marcus said. His voice broke on the 2nd word. I never knew your last name. I never knew your face. I only ever had a name on an email and a voice on a phone. Daniel looked up at him calmly. Hello, Marcus. You saved my company. The words came out ragged. 5 years ago, Web Logistics was 3 weeks from collapse. We had 600 employees. I had borrowed everything I had. And someone, you, bought a silent stake, restructured the debt, negotiated with the suppliers, and then sold the stake back to me at cost the moment we were stable. I tried to find you for 2 years. The holding company was a shell. The lawyers wouldn't give me anything. I thought, he stopped. He pressed his fist briefly to his mouth. I thought it was some kind of angel. I genuinely thought that. The church was so quiet you could hear the candles. You were good at what you did, Daniel said simply. You just needed time the bank wouldn't give you. It seemed a shame to let it go under. 600 families, Marcus said. My team, my whole life. You walked away without a word. You built it, Daniel said. I just moved something out of the road. Marcus Webb, founder, CEO, Groom, stood in the aisle of his own wedding and wept without embarrassment. He reached out and shook Daniel's hand with both of his and held it. And the entire room watched a man in an Italian suit hold the hand of a man in a 6-year-old navy, a jacket like it was something sacred. Later, after the vows were completed and the reception had spilled into the golden evening, the bridesmaid with the sharp opinions found her, way to the bar and stood beside Vivian. I didn't know, she said quietly, about him, what he did. Vivian looked across the room to where Daniel sat with Lily. His daughter had arrived for the reception. The little girl eating cake and describing something with enormous enthusiasm while her father laughed. No, Vivian said. That's exactly the point. He didn't do it to be known. Daniel Mercer drove home that night with Lily asleep in the back seat. Her shoes off, her dress slightly smudged with buttercream. He drove in the quiet of a man who carries his worth entirely on the inside, where no one can see it and no one can take it. The navy suit hung on the door when he got home. He'd need to press it again. It was the only one he had. And some events, he thought, were worth showing up for, even when the room made you feel like you didn't belong. Belonging, he had long since learned, was never really about the room. If this story moved you, please support kindness true stories like Dai Sitasudsudisnotasmo. Share and subscribe to the channel. Every story shared is a reminder that quiet goodness exists, even when no one is watching. Thank you for being here.